Senator Cotton. Iran is a lot weaker today than they were a year ago, or that Hezbollah has been eliminated as a proxy, or seriously weakened. Their missile attack on Israel have been intercepted. What is your assessment on whether that makes them more likely to reach a deal along the lines that you have outlined today, and what is your assessment on how that has impacted their desire for a nuclear weapon or their decision-making on whether to restart the nuclear program?
Well, I think Iran has always lived in mortal terror of the United States and what the United States might do to the Ayatollahs, especially when we have a strong president like Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan. When President Trump directed the killing of Iran's terrorist mastermind in January of 2020, Iran largely pulled in its horns for the rest of President Trump's first term. When Ronald Reagan sank half of Iran's navy in 1988, Iran again pulled in its horns. It stopped mining the Arabian Gulf, and within just a few months, the 8-year Iran-Iraq war ended. A reporter asked President Reagan in the midst of that conflict as he walked across the South Lawn to Marine One if we were now at war with Iran. And Reagan chuckled, as he often did, and said, no, Iran wouldn't be so stupid. And Iran has been exposed in many ways over the last year, both through the destruction of most of its air and missile defenses by Israel in retaliation last year when Iran struck Israel, and also by the devastation that Israel has visited upon Hamas and Hezbollah, and that we've done to Iran's proxies in Yemen. So I think there's no question that Iran is in a much weaker position to deter military action if that's necessary to end its nuclear program. The president recognizes that. Leaders in the region recognize that. Most notably, the Ayatollahs recognize that. And I think they, again, are deathly afraid. Now, they probably hope that they can bluff the president or tap him along in a way that minimizes the threat to their nuclear weapons program. But the simplest way for them to avoid such action is to completely dismantle their program, to turn over their centrifuges, to turn over their uranium, and at that point, as Senator Graham has said, we could talk about some kind of civilian nuclear program, a program that a couple dozen nations around the world have, none of whom enrich uranium.
That's fine. That's good.
Does the Senate need to approve a deal in order for it to last into the future?
Well, I think obviously, if any other nation wants the most durable and lasting kind of agreement with the United States, it would be in a treaty form. And that was one reason why President Obama's deal was so weak, and something that I and Senator Graham and most other Republican senators cautioned the Ayatollahs about before reaching that deal, is that an agreement between the American president, whoever he or she may be, and a foreign leader can be reversed by future presidents, which President Trump rightly did 7 years ago today. So if they want the most durable and lasting kind of deal, then they'd want to bring it to the Senate and have it voted on as a treaty.
I think the statute that I think Senator Cotton helped lead regarding us having a say about the JCPOA, what's the name of that statute?
INARA. The Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act.
Yeah, so that allowed us to at least have a say about it. It wasn't a treaty. I think at a minimum that would happen, but I talked to actually Secretary Rubio about this. A treaty with Iran in this space is only possible if you get 67 votes. There's no way you're going to get 67 votes unless they completely dismantle and shut down the path that Senator Cotton has described toward a nuclear weapon in a way that's verifiable. But also, you're not going to get a 67 votes for a treaty regarding their nuclear program unless they deal with the missile program and their terrorism activity. So is it possible? Yes, if Iran changes. I would urge the Ayatollah to seriously consider what Secretary Rubio and Witkoff are proposing. You can have what you claim you want, which is a peaceful nuclear power program, if you dismantle. But it's more than that. You can have a better relationship with the United States if you do the things that Senator Cotton laid out. Without fundamental change, there is no pathway to a treaty in the United States Senate.
And I would just add to that Senator Graham is right. I mean, Barack Obama's nuclear deal with Iran was hugely controversial because it was so weak, because it paved their path to a nuclear weapon. That's why it was opposed not just by Republicans, but by Democrats as well, to include Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate. I don't foresee a situation in which we'd be voting on a deal that would resemble anything like President Obama's deal, and therefore would be so hugely controversial. Secondarily, on the nuclear power front, it's also customary in some cases for the Congress, not just the Senate, to pass ordinary legislation that supports the so-called 1, 2, 3 agreements we have with other countries around the world to provide them with peaceful civilian nuclear